endless sea. Heartbeats blend with oceans roar, seeking depth I can't ignore. Shells and sand beneath my toes, tides reveal what ebb and flows. In the quiet still I hear whispered longings crystal clear. Deep calls to deep inside of me, where the sky meets endless sea. Heartbeats blend with oceans roar, seeking depth I can't ignore. Shells and mirrors, soul's desire, burning with a holy fire. Depth of love beyond all dreams, in the vastness it redeems.
All right. Hey, everybody. I forgot to take them out while the thing was playing. So we're just going to go with it with the flow here. So that's what happens when you get text messages from people in the middle of a live stream. So welcome everybody to When Deep Calls Deep. We're doing something different today. So I think it was last week. Yeah. Josh approached me. He's like, hey, I got somebody who I'm having a disagreement with, and usually I bring them on my channel, and we kind of talk things out. But I want to do this on neutral territory. Can we do this on your channel? And I was like, okay, as long as I don't have to say much, I'm good. Let's do it. And so this is going to be kind of fun. So we're going to have. You're mostly not going to see or hear a lot from me today. This will be unusual. I'm not going to talk nearly as much. So we're going to hear a lot from Josh. And also I want to introduce Hannah, who she and I have been live stream people, have known each other for quite a while. We go way back to way before my YouTubing days. So this is kind of fun to actually get to have her on. I think it's her first YouTube appearance. So welcome, Hannah, to YouTube and to my channel. So this is going to be fun. So I'm gonna leave it there, and I'll stay up during the introductions, and then once the conversation kind of kicks in, I will kind of drop into the background and let these two chat. So, Josh, why don't you kind of set because that's about what I know there. So why don't you kind of get the rest of the story filled in, and then we'll have Hannah introduce herself a little bit too.
Well, first, hi.
Hey.
Yeah, thanks for letting us use your space here for a second, Amber. This is really neat. Let me fix my camera. Thanks for letting us use your space. This is really cool, and it's nice to be able to connect with you, Hannah, and have the opportunity to kind of expand and learn some stuff and talk with each other and try to figure out where it is that because I feel like maybe it's not necessarily that we're having a disagreement, is that we're having a lack of mutual understanding, because I don't think that as the last time that I spoke with you, the first time that I spoke with you, which was the last time, I didn't find myself disagreeing all that much, which is for some people on the internet might be genuinely surprising, because you talk to somebody that you have an opposing view with, and you talk with them and find out that you actually don't disagree on all that much. There's actually something really interesting hiding behind that most of the time. And so really appreciative to be able to just kind of talk with you. And I wanted to, out of courtesy, because you've never been on Amber's channel that I'm aware of, and I've never gotten to talk to you in this way. And I know that the people that are listening who are familiar with the both of us probably either might be familiar with your name, but not familiar with you. Going to take a second and just kind of tell us who you are. That would be, I think, apropos. But other than that, what we're kind of discussing is just, something that we had an interaction with about mostly about marriage, really. And so it's kind of an interesting topic, but it was kind of about hierarchy and authority and marriage and submission and things like that. And so all the fun stuff, but yeah, Hannah, if you want to take a second and just kind of let everybody know who you are, that would be really good.
Yeah, okay. Well, for one, thank you for thinking of doing this conversation. It's really fun for me to actually talk through these things. And like you said, I don't think it's so much of a disagreement other than maybe different perspectives. And I think it's helpful anytime people can sit down and kind of really try to understand one another in their perspective. So to me, this is super fun and I really enjoy these topics. I'm nobody really. I'm a mom. I have 4 kids. I homeschool. I'm also a veterinarian and I love to read and I'm deeply passionate about uh, just I don't all kinds of theology. So for whatever reason, I really enjoy reading boring theology books. So that's me.
Well, if you enjoy it, they're not exactly boring. Um, I can agree that theology is an acquired taste a lot of the time, though. That's fair. I think that's fair. But it's not surprising to anyone here. So you're in good company.
Yeah.
I in terms of the topic that we were discussing, I actually forgot which post it was that we were talking on that had brought the topic up. I actually couldn't find.
Hmm.
I can't remember what that was, but I do remember that our conversation was about an hour or so, I think, when we were on the phone. We centered primarily around a couple of central pillar texts, one of which being Ephesians, right, in chapter 5, when Paul's talking about marriage, and he spoke of uh, uh, the idea of submission to the husbands, and wives submit to your husbands, and husbands respect your wives, and then this dynamic that was created there by the language that was being used, and you were offering a perspective on that I thought was really striking, but also not as disagreeable as I would have thought. And so I think that that's something that's kind of worth restaging. If you could, like, just for the sake of the conversation itself, kind of rehash a little bit when we were talking
Hmm.
about this. One
Hmm.
of the words that kind of popped up and was seemed to be mostly central was the imagistic language of being the head. Can you kind of, for the
Hmm.
sake of clarity, go over what it is you mean by this?
Okay, so I think that what what I've seemed to pull out of the metaphor that Paul is making about head would be much more one around unity and the necessary nature of both the head and the body to
Hey, Hannah,
create this one thing. So, yeah,
can you,
is the audio
if
okay?
you might want to walk like closer to your router if you have Wi-Fi, because you're breaking up a little bit.
Okay. Yep. Okay. All right. Is that better? Let's see. Oh, get closer. Um,
It seems like it's getting a little bit better. You have a lovely yard, though. Look at that.
okay. Yeah. Is that better?
A little bit. It's
I'm
still
showing.
lagging the picture a bit, but the audio's better.
Okay. All right. I have full bars, but yeah. Let's see. Should I just keep trying?
Yeah, yeah. Go ahead. I can hear you.
Okay. Okay. All right.
It's not breaking
So
up as bad.
okay. The metaphor that I see that Paul is using would be one of unity. So meaning that he's showing a distinct difference between the head and the body, but also that they're essential to each other for his for an entire an organism. So for the church to be a church, it has to have a head, which is Christ. For a wife to be a wife and a husband to have a husband, they're essential to one another. So I would say that the idea of head and the way that Paul uses it in the book of Ephesians, throughout the book of Ephesians, would be that he is talking about the essentialness of the head and its connection to the body, and that he is drawing out the idea of the necessary unity that is there. And then he's stating head as if it is something you are or is, that is a fact, but not necessarily as something that is um, done or practiced or um, a verb. So it's not something you do, it's something that you are. And then what flows from that are Paul's instructions to, both men and women, and what they are to do, which seems different from the factual statement that you are a head. So I was just making the distinction that I don't see it as I don't see Paul pointing to authority as being the main idea of head in that passage.
Okay. And I think that's probably fair to expand, because I think that's let me be fair. I'll back up a little bit. There's a tendency in theology, especially in interpretation, to try to make a reductionistic argument for the way that a text should be interpreted, because it simplifies the use of each kind of verbiage within the verse or the passage or the chapter or the book or whatever it is that it's being housed in, however large that context might be. It gets more and more difficult to properly understand a verse the more the semantic range is being acknowledged, right? By semantic range, I just mean the possible definitions for the word, right? And so the idea is, and I'm sure you're aware of this, Hannah. I'm just kind of spelling this out for the audience so that they can keep up with what we're saying. If there's a difference between how, let's say, the word yom in Hebrew is what we translate the word day, right? There's a lot of controversy surrounding this word because of the sheer amount of ways you can interpret the word day. And it doesn't seem like it would be that difficult to interpret the word day, but it really is not that straightforward to interpret a word like day, because there's so many different usages of that word. It's not necessarily that the definition needs to change. It's that the usage gets altered based on its context, not the definition.
Mhm.
The definition is what makes the thing what it is. If we didn't know what a head was, the metaphorical or symbolic use of head would have no
Mhm.
meaning whatsoever. And so head as a definition doesn't change. The semantic range of use in metaphor or symbolism might change. And so I'm perfectly willing to acknowledge that when the head is part of a body, the body has life because the head is still attached. And
Mhm.
that's something that has kind of an interesting relationship. It's not exactly a one for one, because no metaphor is perfect, because if you cut off the head doesn't continue to live like Christ would
Mhm.
without us, right? So it's not that kind of thing, but it is an interesting thing to note that the body itself maintains life and unity by way of connection to the head. So I think that's perfectly reasonable. And if that's is that what you're saying? Because I want to make sure that I understand what you
Mhm.
mean.
Yeah, that is what I'm saying. And I even would push it a little further, because I would say that without a body, a head has no, um, what is a head, right? So like I would say, just like in a marriage, if you don't have a husband or a wife, you don't have a marriage. So I would
Right.
say that in the same way that without, Christ and us together, we don't have whatever it is that he's imagining that Christ and us together are. And I would call that the church, but I'm not really sure if that's the right term to use. Does that make sense? I would say if you separated either one, if you're missing the humanity side of it, the people side of it, or the God side of it, you wouldn't have whatever we form together as a unit. Just like without
Yeah,
the man or the woman, you wouldn't have a marriage.
I see what you're okay. So
Hmm.
by way of this metaphor, you're saying the marriage is the life itself,
Yeah,
that one
I
flesh, the
I
man
think
being the
so.
head, the
Yeah,
woman being the body, or
yeah,
is
the
that how you're seeing
oneness.
that?
Yeah. Hmm.
Okay. And so
Hmm.
they're components of equal importance, but having a different function or having a different place. I'm because I kind
Yeah.
of want to parse that out.
Hmm. Yeah, they're absolutely different. Yeah, so they're different, but together they make the one thing, whatever the thing is. So the one marriage. Yeah, and they're different, and then that would be the question: is how do those differences? Oh, I think I froze.
No, you're good. We can still hear
No,
you.
you're good.
Okay, okay, all right. I guess the question would be, yeah, then what are those differences, and how does that work?
Gotcha. Okay. Amber popped up. I'm assuming that means that you have something to add.
Well, I just would like to address this right here because I think this is a confusion in the conversation of what's kind of happening. So I
Okay.
want to address what's going on in Genesis 2 specifically. But so the question is, well, she said, so if Eve, because she asked or made a comment earlier about Eve coming from the rib of Adam's side, didn't count for either foot. So what's the argument or the dispute here? But I just want to address this misnomer, a misunderstanding of the creation of Eve. So, in what's happening in that story there, in Hebrew, this is what is called prophetic poetry. And so what's actually happening in that, it's not like Adam had an extra rib that God just pulled out as a spare part and then poof, here's Eve. This is vision language. So it's like Adam is in a dream or either dead and then brought back to life, depending on how far back in church history tradition you want to go to look at that. But this is Adam in a prophetic vision, and it's describing him literally being ripped in half. I mean, God just cuts him down the middle and then takes those two halves and makes incomplete holes with them so that they're independently a whole, but they're not a full whole unless they are together, mutually put together. So they can't actually fully exist apart from one another. They are mutually dependent. Their existence of completeness is mutually dependent on each other. So it's not like she is lesser from a spare part. She is literally his other half, because that's the way that the Hebrew vision language is showing this. So this is not that's not what's going on there at all. So I just wanted to clarify that point, because that, I think, gums up some people's understanding in the discussion. So I will drop back down now that I have clarified that one point.
Yeah, that's helpful. And
Cool. Thanks,
that
Amber.
is,
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so sorry about that. Go ahead and go on, Hannah. Sorry.
I don't know where, so yeah, I would say that the difference, just like I would say the way, I think we've pointed this out before, the way that Christ is to the body. I don't think that the man and the woman are modeling every way in which Christ is to the church. So I would say that to say that every way that Christ is to the church is every way the man is to the woman, I think would be a mistake. So I think Paul is giving us the limits and the framework for his metaphor in writing. And I think that we should kind of stick to those or hold to those instead of thinking, well, every way that Christ is to the church also might apply to the husband, to the wife. So if we want to talk roles, then that's where I would go with roles, because the head just is, whereas, the instructions to follow are what do you do?
Okay.
That's why
So
I
then I
don't
guess
see authority there.
okay. Well, okay. See, I guess that's where my question is. What would make the exclusion of authority?
Okay.
Rather than why? Because I don't think
Yeah.
that it necessarily needs to be exclusionary. I'm thinking
hmm
because of the way that it's spoken about for
hmm
the great swath of scripture prior, that the idea
hmm
of relational authority is baked right into the language being used, and often the
hmm
metaphors and even the
hmm
symbols and imagery being used to try to connote what's happening in marriage and in
hmm
relationship, or even the relationship simply
hmm
between man and woman, but especially that
hmm
one man, one woman relational
hmm
aspect of, and especially if that's a revelation about the church, there's something about that does
hmm
seem to have relational authority baked right in. So why would the
hmm
exclusion be there?
Yeah, I mean, my pushback would be I don't see the relational authority. I would go back to Genesis 2, and from what Amber said, I think what was being answered there was the lack of companionship, the necessity for um, communion, the necessity for fellowship, the necessity for not being alone, and that was the problem, and then that was what was resolved. And then I would say that I don't see authority as God ordained throughout scripture for men over women, but I see it happening, and I see it in a culture where that is true. Um, that there is that goes on. Why the exclusion? Because I don't think that Paul is pointing towards that in the head metaphor there. And like we talked about earlier, Rosh is like, I don't know Hebrew or Greek, so feel free to jump in, Amber. But the Hebrew word for head definitely had connotations of authority, in that language. But I would push back that Paul's use of head for a husband was very new, very different. And at the time that he was writing, the word kephale did not necessarily come with an idea of authority. Um, so I would say sticking to what Paul is highlighting in the book of Ephesians, especially by his use of the head body metaphor, which to me looks like unity and provision or unity, um, would be closer to what he was trying to mean by the word head or by the metaphor.
Go ahead, Amber.
Okay, so okay, this is, you're gonna have to buckle up with me here for this one for a minute, because this is gonna ruffle some feathers. Okay, are you are you ready for this?
Yeah.
I'm gonna do something that's gonna, either everybody's gonna love or I'm gonna make everybody mad at the same time. Okay, because I think that a lot of these conversations about the Greek and the Hebrew and in these complementary and egalitarian conversations are so stuck in the Western mind that it's hard to understand what the East is doing. So I'm going to do something a little radical and weird, but trust me, we're not going full crazy here. I'm just borrowing language I'm just borrowing non-tainted language to help clarify some of the ancient Near East mindset of how the language works and thinks. Okay. So that's all I'm trying to do. So we're going to back up to we're going to start in Hebrew and how that, because the world was very much smaller at that point and the way that they were thinking. So I'm going to borrow something that started evolving around the same time period. And we're going to borrow the Tao language of yin yang. And that is one word in Mandarin, yin yang. And it is unseparable. It's an unseparable term. However, yin and yang do also exist separately. And you have the yang, which is the organizer, and you have the yin, which is the life giver. So this directly correlates, and maybe one day I'll do a video on this, directly correlates to Ish and Isha. So the two words in for man and woman do the exact same thing in Hebrew that yin and yang do in Mandarin. So they are interdependent with each other. So Ish, man, is the organizer. So go back to Genesis 1, God creates he prepares a space and then he fills a space. So man organizes a space and woman fills that space. And so they are mutually dependent on each other, like the sky and the earth. The sky gives, the earth receives, and then gives life and gives back to the sky. And it's a mutual circle that goes around and around and around. So that if you take, there also is the concept of hot and cold, not saying no comment on value or anything there. It's just the nature of how it works. If you live in Texas and don't like cold and you get rid of the winter, the planet's going to burn, and if you live in Texas and you hate heat and you get rid of the sun, we're going to freeze to death. They're mutually dependent, and in a cooperative union, that each of them has their distinct thing that they do, but one is not better than the other. However, we live in a culture that is yang obsessed, that does not like weakness. It does not like vulnerability. It does not like those who receive. We only have value in our culture if we are producers, if we are organizers, or if we are the ones who we perceive as the powerful. Although I would argue that the organizer is a lot less powerful than the one who is the life giver, because, they can't give birth. They can't create new life. They just organize it after it has been given, and organize it so that life can continue to be given and be given. So in early church patristics and New Testament thought, actually the yin, the feminine aspect of that, was held up in higher esteem and higher glory than it was than we think of it now, because they were more in balance with their yin yang and their isha. So if that makes any sense, that's what's happening behind the languages there. If that clarifies any of that, so then I will go away again.
Like the ghost of Christmas present. That's wonderful. So no, that's actually like super relevant and rather interesting to add, because I feel like that is the distinction that most people are actually upset with more often when this conversation comes up, is authority to us equals importance, rather than, in fact, thinking about it as that role or orientation difference toward one another. There is a difference, but not just a difference in function and in form, but also like fundamentally a difference in the way that those roles kind of play out. And it's not necessarily the case that there's like a one shape fits all situation for them, because those roles do shift and move, but there's like a main current of how that plays out. And this is really how symbolism works in general, is there's a main current of how a narrative pattern plays itself out across time, and even across spanning narratives in general. And so even outside of the biblical narrative, but specific with the biblical narrative, the way that symbolism ends up panning itself out in that broader sense is that it's the thing that remains across all the different types of narrative, the thing that if you could distill them all down and get the thing that isn't changing, is kind of the fundamental basis for the symbol. And a lot of the times doing this with scripture is by far the best, because other stories are very much more muddled, and the scripture has a very revelatory nature to it. And so it has much more specificity, in the way that God has given us these things are often much more useful than looking at secular stories. Not that secular stories are evil or we shouldn't look at them, just that they tend to be less useful than more explicit revelation. And so I think that that's probably the best way to look at it. But I do think that what Amber said is very relevant, that women are of higher esteem and higher glory. And I don't think that inequality is an insult to men, right? I don't see any need to exclude that for any reason. And so I think that might actually be something that's likely attached to why these things become so impassioned in these conversations when people are talking about this, is because we conflate the idea of authority with value. Kind of almost on the basis of where we came from. We live in a society that thinks this way. As she just pointed out, we swim in this. Hey, Amber, you
Yeah,
look like
Sorry,
Oh, that was funny.
I just, that's funny. I was like, okay, I wanted to add here, because it in that yin yang isha thinking, that does not necessitate that women cannot have roles or positions that have authority. That means that they are pulled in as experts for different, like, you can be an expert at something. So you see a lot of the women that we see throughout the Bible are held up because they are experts at their whatever it is that they're doing. So it's not like, and I would also throw out to muddle some of the complementarian position here, Proverbs 31 ultimately is not bashing women with you only should be an unattainable standard for women. This is a foreshadowing of the church. This is the foreshadowing of what the church is supposed to do. Ultimately, Proverbs 31, church, this is what we should be doing. So it's not that we automatically are lesser. We automatically are the givers of life and the givers of the sustenance. And in that role, we can also be the experts who can step in and have the authority in those roles. It's just that That
Mhm.
is, when we do that in a life-giving way, not in an organizing or um, drawing borders kind of way, a structuring kind of way that the yang energy does. It just, I think a lot of this gets funneled through abuses instead of design. And
Mm.
that's where a lot of the conversation breaks down.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. That's kind of what I was saying. Is like, I feel like there's a lot of bad feelings built into a conversation about this topic because of exactly that. Because of that, because a lot of this has been painted by our exposure to its ill use. You know what I mean? There aren't very many examples
Mhm.
in my life personally of strong male figures who act as authority, who haven't been
Mhm.
in some manner of abuse of that authority. That
Mhm.
is not a normal, maybe that's normal somewhere, but that has
Mhm.
not been normal in my experience. That
Mhm.
has definitely not been normal in my experience. But yeah, what do you
Yeah.
think of all that
Mhm.
stuff, Hannah? I want to hear
Okay.
you out from this
Yeah,
one.
I completely understand what like kind of where you're coming from with that. And I really love the idea of the yin and the yang and all of that. Like the ish isha, like the balance. Um, I I just that's the position I came from before would be no, there's in the Ish and Isha is also carried a difference of authority. And by authority, so I think when we were talking, we had a different definition, which makes it a little harder. Because for me,
Okay.
um, that's a specific thing. So authority, I would say, would be the right to enforce something. So the government has the right to enforce their rules. The government has authority. Jesus has the right to enforce his rules. Jesus has all the authority. I don't know that there is authority difference between man and woman. And that's my big question. I think there's power differences between every single human that is ever born. And you
Hmm.
could point to different kinds of power, like between men and women, there's power difference just on sheer physical strength, right? So,
Hmm.
on balance, men are more physically powerful than women. But I
Generally,
would
yeah.
say there's different kinds, yeah, I would say there's different kinds of power. So
Hmm.
intellectually, I don't, it's all across the board, who knows? There's, you know, either or. Um,
Well,
the ability to,
in most of those cases, as
mhm,
far as all of those qualities go, men and women are more the same than they are different. In those
yeah,
cases, it's
sure,
the
yes,
extremes that make the differences. It's not
hmm,
actually the median. We're actually more the same than we are
yeah,
different.
agreed. And so what I would say is across humanity, there's difference in amounts of power. And you're kind of born into the world with that. And
Hmm.
what I see, the message of the cross, the message of Jesus who came to be us was one of laying aside power or using power in a way that was always for others. So between the man and the woman, they have different power, and their
Hmm.
power is to be used in benefit of the other, in service to the other. And whatever that power is to be laid down to be used to benefit the other person, the other part of that marriage. And that's what I see being highlighted by Paul's language of, hey, you are the head, but as the head, he may be pointing to preeminence or prominence or something. But as the head, what are you to do? You're to love self-sacrificially, which I find very interesting because in a marriage, definitionally, if a woman bears children, she is laying her body down. That's like full stop what she's doing, right?
Hmm.
So I find it interesting because I feel like a woman is actually doing that, and then the man in that situation, Paul is exhorting to do that, and nowhere do we see Paul saying, uh, use your authority over or use authority or lead, which would be very easy words to use if that was the goal of marriage. So that would be my pushback on that. It's not that I have a problem with authority, which I understand government has authority. There's different roles of authority. I just am wondering if we have misunderstood the biblical nature of marriage in considering authority as part of a male role versus it versus the idea of power. Like we have different power and we both use our power to support the other. That would be my.
Well, I just don't like. Perhaps that's where I'm still missing. Why would be the utility of power for the good of the other not be in accordance with biblical authority?
Because again, authority is the idea of the right to enforce.
Sure.
So,
But
and
you have,
I don't
but
see
you have
that.
authority over your
I don't see
children.
that in
But
Christ. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. So parents, because children are immature and unable to make decisions, they become pretty helpless. You have the right to enforce rules, but the goal of a parent is to raise a child up to maturity, to a co-equal partnership of like, I see you as an adult. And now I have influence and I have power, but I don't have the right to enforce rules anymore. I don't have the right to enforce my position. Like we all have different influence. We all have different, ability to influence based on our given gifts and whatever they are. But the right to enforce is something that brothers and sisters in the body of Christ, I think, are not to act in that way. So that would be my pushback. I would say that we're to act as brothers and sisters, which are not hierarchical. They're they use their gifts for the betterment of the other. So that would be that was my thought.
So I feel like perhaps if I'm using the word authority, it's just not landing in the place that I would be using the word authority for. I think perhaps that's what's going on, because I everything you're saying, I'm not disagreeing with any of the points that you're making. It's actually very apropos, I think, to think that women and men have different types of power, different abilities, different strengths and virtues, and that gives them different roles. Like begetting and bearing. That's an entirely different role. But it just that I guess where I'm perhaps I'm still misunderstanding, because it sounds like the whoa, what just happened? I'm the only one here. Why am I a big screen?
I'll come back. She just, I think she dropped out. We'll see if we'll give her a minute to come back here. So,
oh no.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I hope she's able to come back. That stinks.
Yep. So I think, and I really like Troy's point here too, that the purpose of head is to initiate or invite holiness through service. Like authority and rule are always used extremely targetedly by Christ. You don't ever see him just wielding the authority stick everywhere on everyone.
That's right. And I don't disagree with that. I actually think that's a really apropos point, because it does answer the problem of modern abuses of what would be authority, and Christ flips that authority on its head and says that the one who is to be greatest needs to be the servant of all. And that's a willful engagement of like abdicating the sense of self and allowing other people to be that place of prominence, that you give yourself to that service. You do that. You should do that. You can do that. And it's good to do that. I think that's all. Again, this is what I think is where we probably have to go back to just definitionally talking about authority as such, because I think this ends up being something that is less clear if we're talking about who has authority, if we're not talking about what authority is. And so when I just heard Hannah lay out what she means by authority is the enforcement of rule, right? And that can be authority. That's one function of authority, but I don't know that that's a container big enough to house what authority means when I'm trying to use the word authority and referencing anything like the biblical relationships. Because what I mean by authority isn't a top-down power exercise. It is a top-down relationship, but it is not a top-down power exercise. It's a top-down relationship. And so in the same way that God is giving to Israel, consistently giving, and he is, as Hannah just said, it's a really great way of looking at it, that God is the source. God is the head. God is the reason they maintain and receive life, but they also maintain and receive guidance. And so they receive these things both from the same source, and that source has authority. And God didn't simply show up, make himself an authority in the way that we would often care for him to do. And he doesn't often show up in our lives and grab us like a rag doll and make us do things, as convenient as that might otherwise be sometimes, because we're pretty thick, or at least I am. It would be really convenient if God just grabbed me like a rag doll and made me do stuff, but he doesn't do that, you know? And so usually that kind of thing is being portrayed in a Hollywood sense. That's what we call possession rather than anything else. And so that is not authority. That is abuse. That's all that is. And so if that's what we mean by authority, then I agree. Wholesale, I agree, because that's not authority, that's abuse. Authority is different. What I mean by authority fundamentally is self-sacrifice and the responsibility taken, right? And so it's not necessarily the case that when I'm self-sacrificial for my wife and thereby become an authority to her, she submits to me not because I'm above her, but because she knows that my desire is for her, right? Like she believes me. I've made myself worthy of that trust, and she submits to that trust, and I provide in that gap that she illustrates by that submission and trust. That's a relational thing, and it's not something I could ever take from her. And enforcement is the wrong word for something like that. And so I can see why that doesn't build together the picture that I would try to be painting when I'm saying that the scriptures and biblical authority as the man being the priest of the house, something like that. Let's say if somebody comes to my door who is a threat to my home, my wife does not answer for the house. That is not her strength. That is not her place. That's not what she does. But because of that place that I'm being given, the responsibility that comes with it affords the case that I am in a say over my family in the case of their safety and otherwise. That is something that I have the ability and the right to have say so, if they're willing to submit to that, because I've made myself trustworthy of that submission. And so this is all very deeply contingent upon the relationship being functional and not abusive. And so I agree, if abuse is what we have in view when we say authority, then I think that that type of authority is null. I think that should be shunned, because that's not what Christ did for the church. That's not who Christ was for the church. He washed their feet, and they called him Lord, and he allowed it. They worshiped him. They did as he said. He said, if you love me, you'll follow my commandments. And then he washed their feet. It's not an either or for me. I never lived in an either or place. I think that those things work really, really well together, the way that they're portrayed in the person of Christ, especially the relationship that he has to his people. But this is really kind of frustrating that she hasn't been able to pop on, because I feel like this is where the disconnect is. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, while you're thinking, and while we're giving her a chance to see if she can work out the technical bugs that she's having there, I also want to point out that when you look at because like when Israel goes to God and says we want a king, so they're like, we want a human stand-in because we're just not happy that you're not here and we can't see you, and that's not good enough for us. We want a king like everybody else. So the rules that are set out for kings, you know what the job of the king was to copy the Torah and be the ideal liver outer of the Torah. That was the king's job. That's all the dude was supposed to do. And you can see every time that how horribly wrong that went, and every time it went horribly wrong, and he didn't lead from that position of humility, because Torah was protection of life. It was taking care of the poor and the widow and the foreigner. It was, that emptying and protection of those who are the ones who need protection, and that is men and women. That wasn't just a diss on women. That was on anyone who needs protection. So authority was meant to be used just to as authority was used in protection.
Right, which is the instance that I was trying to bring up as a valid example of where that overlap, where I think the abuse shouldn't be, but has grabbed hold, is that I answer for the family, right? I am the frontline defense of the family. I'm the castle of the family. They're the contents and the treasure of the castle, and I'm the castle of the family. And if that's the case, the castle is not meant to be a trap that keeps things in. It's meant to be a protection that keeps wrongful things out. And so I think that's where the abuses end up being kind of the frontline image that we have a lot of the time here, is we've seen people that have used a castle as a way to keep the world out. And so they shelter and isolate, and that's a misuse of authority. And then other ways that they stop what's in from coming out, and they intentionally exclude, and they keep their kids away from other kids, or they keep their wife away from the other women, and they don't let them go. You know what I mean? Like there are very weird ways that this dynamic can play out. There's lots of ways this can go wrong. Don't get me wrong. I'm not naive. There's lots of ways this can go wrong. And I'm not speaking from a place of like naivety here. Like, I have a wife, I have kids, and we've gone through some stuff, right? But recognizing that, and man, I really wish Hannah was here because this.
Okay, here she is. She's back now.
Oh, she's
I just want one more thing before, and then I'll drop, and then I'll drop out. So I just got this really weird thing in my head that I was like, I'm going to borrow an analogy that Leighton uses in his conversations, but I think it would apply here in this context. At least in my brain, it does. I don't know. I could be wrong. Probably am, but that's okay. It's my channel. I can be wrong all I want, right? So, he talks about in the idea of salvation, like, all you got to do is there's the fortress, and everybody who's outside the fortress is invited to come in because the disaster is coming, and everyone who chooses to get inside the fortress is safe. And so that, I think, for me, is kind of like this idea of hierarchy. Is this like everyone who, the hierarchy is there to be the protection when it's needed. It's not there to be a zoo. You're not supposed to be the zookeeper putting everybody in their containers and leaving them there. They're meant to go out, wander around, do life, do the things. But when it's necessary, then there is that shelter of protection. It's kind of in my brain. Yes, when it's necessary. It's not necessary all the time. It's not a club to beat people with. It's not, and this is where my point way back earlier is that I think we let the abuses rewrite the definitions and dictate the conversation instead of rebooting or restoring back to what the conversation should be and holding people to the standard of what it should be. It's a fight for space. It's a fight for existence. So one side is fighting for male space to exist, and the other side is fighting for female space to exist, but both sides flatten it to a gray where no one exists. So we have to get back to the default of what it's supposed to be and defining it by what it's supposed to be, not by the definitions rewritten by the abuses, I think.
Yeah, I think I heard most of what you guys said. So sorry that I kept my link.
It's okay. We can hear you.
Okay. Wow. Yeah, that's a lot to think about. And I think I totally agree with the abuses being used to define, and that's not helpful. It's not helpful for anyone because that makes it be more extreme on everybody's end. But my question would be, what do we think Christ restored? What do we think Christ came to do? What does it mean to be in Christ? And I think we're maybe missing that because I don't know.
Oh no.
That's too bad. We
Who I
may have
got from
to,
audio also.
yeah, we may have to do a part 2 and see if we can help her set up through her laptop so it's a little more stable.
Man, this sucks. I feel like we were going somewhere.
I know. I was really
No.
looking forward to what she had to say too, because it's definitely an interesting question.
Well, if I was so bold as to anticipate, I do have a feeling that I think maybe what she's going to point out is when Christ redeems, he's taking away the ill and the abuses and the things that make our need for equality a need, those things that happened that ought not to have happened, those divides by way of class or by gender or by master and slave, those type of things, those dynamics where it says there is no Jew or Greek, male or female, slave nor free, all are one in Christ. I think that's probably the thing she's going to point to as a rebuff to some of what we have been just saying. Not that I think that that's a rebuff, but I kind of think that that's where she's going to go with that. I really do wish she was able to come back though, because that stinks. That stinks. Yeah, we're definitely going to have to make this work. If it's not going to work right now, we're going to have to make this work, because this is definitely not something I can leave at the cliffhanger.
Right. And yeah, and I would I think to you, Josh, I would respond this way, and I would just say that I think that yes, that's the case. However, that is the not yet of the already, and we are still
Fair.
broken. We are still
Fair.
wounded. We are still holding it over each other. We live in a culture that is poisoned in it, and
I guess
is
probably what I would want to know is if, and this is something that we can have her perhaps answer when we come back, if this is going to be a part 2, is I would love for her to kind of lay out. She said that there are different powers. There are different ways that those powers are of service to one another, and that kind of gives a mutual submission. I'm wondering if she thinks that equality is something that's meant to be an answer for the ill in the world, or if the idea of violating equality is the ill in the world. Because in my view, equality is a band-aid on something that's gone wrong, rather than an answer for what's gone wrong. And I think that might be another disconnect, is she's saying that was the answer all along, is that hierarchy is a bug and not a feature.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. I do wish she's able to hop on here again. Man. Well,
we'll have to see and try a part 2 to see if we can get to get Hannah to be able to, because I really want to hear what she has to say, and because I still have a lot of thoughts that I just haven't said yet, and because it's not really, the conversation is not between the 3 of us, really. It's between the 2 of you, and I'm trying to stay out of it as much as possible. But while we're having technical difficulties, I'm trying to fill a little dead air to give her a chance to get that worked out on her end. But I think ultimately, in the final eschaton, it will be put. The fulfillment of Ish Isha. We will see the fulfillment of Ish Isha. It won't be put back the way it was. It will be fulfilled and made even fuller in its more of its beauty, and set back to its roles. We will be restored to our roles as priest and priestess, the way that we were created to be. And both of those roles, if you look at what the priests do, they do a lot of service. And they don't have any dictatorial powers. Their job is to orchestrate worship. And that's what they did. And that's what, cultivating Eden was about. And it was, serving together to point everything to the worship of God. And when we are brought into the fullness of that we had to take the long way around to get to.
Yeah.
A lot of those wounds and a lot of that how should I say this? Not stolen. I don't know how you would steal it, but that's the best word I have. Stolen authority, falsely wielded, will be healed.
Misappropriated.
Yes, misappropriated. That's why we call you the word wizard.
Yeah. Man.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, man, that stinks. And I wish I was a technology wizard and I can fix things. But lest we forget, I am tech-tarded and I don't have any aptitude toward that whatsoever. So
Yeah, me neither. So
we'll have to definitely make this work, though. I really I don't want to give up, but I really definitely want to make this work as best we can. If Satan wants this to stop, then we're definitely going to ruin his parade and make this work a different day.
Yes, we'll definitely have to have a part 2, because I really want to hear Hannah's thoughts, and that would give both of you some time to think about some of the back and forth and just kind of nuancing, because it's all learning, so it's all nuancing. I mean, we're all constantly turning the diamond to look at it from a little bit more of a different aspect, expanding our definitions, and getting better understanding. That's part of the whole process of life and gaining wisdom, I guess. Not that I have any to give away, but that's kind of what we do around here, is just try to inspire you to think bigger and deeper, because I don't have answers for much except pedantic academia. That's about all I have. But yeah, so we will definitely be in touch with Hannah. And oh, yeah, she said her phone's just not able to keep up, so she loves everything that we're saying. So we will definitely I'll maybe try to reach out and work with her to figure out how to resolve the computer issue so we can get her on her laptop that'll be more stable. So then we could try this again, because I really think that we could get some good fruit out of the rest of your two's conversation. So
well, I definitely feel edified. And if Hannah's still listening, I really appreciate your time and your attention, because this was something that I wanted to be able to see, this spinning circle of doom. Oh, your face came back, though.
We can see you.
I don't know if you can hear me.
Yeah, yes. Nice.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I think I caught most of what you guys were saying.
See, Hannah, sorry. Sometimes if you turn your camera off, we can hear you, but it lightens the load on your capacity. Yeah, if you turn your camera off, it will let you still talk and you can still hear you. Try that. Yeah, try turning your camera off, Hannah, because sometimes that'll lighten the load and you can still
I think she might still hear you without.
Oh, I think she just lagged out again. Okay. Yeah. So we'll definitely schedule a part 2, because this is definitely a good conversation that needs to continue.
For sure. Yeah. It's a bummer that the technology is not cooperating.
Okay. Yeah, so we will definitely have to reschedule.
Yeah, sorry guys.
That's okay. Yeah, like I said, try turning off, and the button down there, just try turning off the camera, because sometimes that will make it on the feed easier on your bandwidth, so you can still keep up with just the audio.
Yeah,
you might try that.
Just cutting in and out.
Okay, yeah, she's just cutting in now. So,
yeah.
Yep, we will have to. Doggone, I know. So we will definitely schedule a part 2.
Fair.
And,
fair.
And come back to the rest of this, because this is definitely a good conversation.
Everybody in the chat, let us know what you want to hear in part 2.
Yeah.
For sure. Come back after and comment on this video and let us know what you want to hear in part 2 and whether or not this conversation was edifying to you. We hope that this was worth the time.
And we'll get one of our more techie smart friends to maybe reach out and help you figure out settings and whatever to get your mic fixed. So
donate your techie smarts.
All right. So sadly, this is I am very pleased with how the conversation went to that point, but I am very not pleased that technology got in the way of finishing this conversation. So but it gives me something to look forward to with a part 2. And I think that would be most excellent, because that would give us some more time to have this. So we will schedule this as soon as we can. So Josh, what have you got coming up on Cosmic Corner?
Man, well, more immediately, I don't have anything scheduled presently, but the next thing that's coming down the tubes is probably going to be a conversation about the symbolism of the flood, because that's been bouncing around in the Cosmic Crew chat for a minute, and it's caught the attention, and it's keeping my attention. And so I have a feeling that there's something in that wants to come out. And so that's probably going to be the next thing, is the symbolism of the flood. Beyond that, I am always looking for more expansive opportunities to have conversations about things like that, especially now, because I'm starting to learn how much of an absolute blessing it is to have new voices come in, because Cosmic Corners become something, you know what I mean? And so it's nice to be able to get people to come in and participate in a fresh way, and they add something, you know what I mean? And it's detectable because it's become something. And so I'm at that point where I'm genuinely enjoying the process, and I want to be able to expand. So if anybody that's listening here is so bold and you'd like to talk to me about coming on Cosmic Corner, please feel free to reach out, because that would be pretty neat.
You should get Seth to come on with you.
I'm trying. He was supposed to be on the last one. Just saying.
Yeah, and I definitely want to have you and me. I might try to sweet talk Seth into coming and talking about the wilderness with Carrie and I, because we're cooking up some good stuff with the wilderness. I take issue with a lot of people's view of the wilderness, so we're gonna talk about it, because
you mean the place of transformation? Is that what you meant? That place?
Yes, the place of dark evil where the other goat goes. Yes, that place. Yeah. Oh, that sounds awesome. I'm looking forward to it. I enjoy Cosmic Corner a lot. So that's always fun with some of the stuff you guys come up with there. Gives me a lot to think about. Inspired more than one of my episodes just from listening to a Cosmic Corner.
Word.
That's fun. So yeah, I have a ton of stuff in the queue that is coming down the pipe here in the next couple of months. So like I said, Carrie and I are going to do an episode on the wilderness. I've got a collab in the works with one of my BRG crew friends that will be announced soon. And that's going to be epic. And I'm so excited for that one, because that is a long-term project that is going to be amazing. And I have our friend Troy is coming, and we're going to talk about Baruch, and that's going to be awesome. So we're going to get into that, in the incarnation, Baruch and the incarnation, and how those two go together and why it matters. So going to get to start doing some stuff with my thesis now that it's done and over and on the shelf, and nobody can steal my idea. So it's documented that that's my idea now. And so there's going to be some really good stuff. And I've also planning a series on tracing the history of the narrative of liturgy. So we're going to start with creation and work our way forward, tracing the history of liturgy. And I'm hoping to get, and I have one of my amazing mentor scholars from my thesis process coming to talk about wisdom. And he's got an amazing book on wisdom, and got a Job commentary coming out soon. So that's going to be an awesome to have him come and join us here. And that will be, I think, really a lot of fun. So I've got a lot of good. Now that I have some time to put into creating more content, I definitely going to be putting out some more. So I'm hoping to my goal. I would like to get to 1,000 this year. So I've got about 7 months, 6 months, 6 months to do it. So I'm hoping that some of the really good stuff coming out is going to kind of help me get to that point. And I may arm wrestle a few of the guys to like Will to have me back on Church Split and some of those things to kind of help boost some of my exposure, because they do that sometimes. But anyway, I'm just pretty much that, and people get mad at Will for everything, so that's good exposure to because it's probably going to make people upset. So yes, so there's a lot of good stuff coming. I got some good guests lined up. I'm excited about more of some of the scholars that I've been able to work with coming on my channel, and getting really, really nerdy now that we can, and I have the availability to do it. So thank you all for watching. We are very sorry that the technology gremlins have quelched this one, but it has provided the opportunity to get a part 2 and continue this dialogue for even longer. So thank you all for tuning in, and remember, every day we are striving to wake up to the mystery of how big and beautiful our God is. Go and be blessed.